The valet barely looked at me as he took my keys. Maybe it was the modest sedan, or maybe just the way I clutched the gift like it was something breakable. Either way, I didn't belong. Not here. Not tonight. The entrance to the Regency Hotel's grand ballroom shimmered with fairy lights, and guests swept past me in tailored suits and sequined dresses. I stood for a moment at the edge of it all, watching a woman with gold heels carry a toddler wearing a monogrammed velvet blazer. Liam liked dinosaurs, not monograms. I adjusted the bow on the wrapped box in my hands. Remote-controlled helicopter bright green. I'd researched for weeks and saved for months. 10 years old deserved something special. But as I stepped forward, a hand rose. "Sorry, ma'am," the security guard said, blocking my path. "Private event family only. I am family." I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "My name's Aurora Harlow. That's my nephew's birthday party." He hesitated, glanced at his clipboard. "You're not on the list." That's when I saw her Sophia appearing in the archway like she'd been summoned by the tension. Her dress was flawless, a soft lavender that cost more than my entire grocery budget last month. Her smile was effortless and fake. "Aurora," she said, tilting her head like she just remembered I existed. "What are you doing here?" I blinked. "I'm here for Liam's birthday." Sophia's smile didn't waver. "Didn't Mom tell you we decided to keep it small this year? Just immediate family." Behind her, a string quartet played something elegant. Waiters in black jackets carried champagne flutes on silver trays. The guest list had to be over 300. "Small," I echoed. She touched my arm like she was offering comfort. You understand I didn't. But I nodded anyway because that's what I always did. I looked past her into the ballroom. I saw my parents laughing near the cake table. I saw the world I thought I belonged to. And then I turned around and walked back to the parking lot, the gift still in my hands. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I sat in my car for a long time watching the hotel's lights blur through the windshield. Then I reached for my phone, scrolled to one number, and pressed call. The ballroom windows glowed gold against the evening sky. From where I sat, I could see silhouettes dancing. Sophia twirling in heels, my parents swaying near the cake. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel and let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. 7 years ago, when they sold the house on Maple Grove Avenue, I was the one who co-signed their mortgage application. Mom said they didn't want to burden Sophia. She was still getting on her feet after grad school. I didn't ask why Sophia's grad school somehow involved a photography retreat in Napa Valley. Later, I covered her remaining student loans. It was only $18,000, and Mom cried when I wrote the check. "You're such a blessing, Aurora," she said, pressing her hand over mine. Sophia just needs a little room to breathe. Then came Liam's summer camp. Just until her reimbursement check clears, Dad promised. That reimbursement never came. I paid again the next year and the next. I used to think keeping quiet made me strong. That giving without strings was how I proved I mattered. Tonight they proved I didn't. I sat back watching as a delivery van pulled up stacked high with catering trays. Another reminder that no one inside was starving for anything. I unlocked my phone fingers, steady now. My thumb hovered over Ethan's name for just a second. Then I tapped. "Hey, Aurora." He answered on the second ring voice, warm and familiar. "Everything all right?" "No," I said calmly. "I need you to freeze every account that's tied to my name. Joint co-signed, authorized everything." Now there was a pause. Then, "You sure?" "I've never been more sure." He didn't question me after that, just started typing. As the call ended, I looked back at the hotel one last time. The celebration was still going, the music still soft and elegant, the people still laughing like nothing had cracked beneath the surface. But something had. I placed the untouched gift on the passenger seat, folded my hands in my lap, and waited. I didn't know for what, only that something had just shifted in me. And this time, I wasn't letting it pass. It started small like most disappearances do. A canceled movie night here, a rescheduled museum trip there. Liam has soccer. He's got a group project. He's just so tired after school. At first, I believed it. I didn't want to be the clingy aunt. I told myself he'd call next week. I left voicemails, sent care packages. I waited. Fridays used to be ours. I'd pick him up. We'd split a cherry slush at that corner shop by the school. He'd tell me which dinosaur was the fastest, the scariest, the most misunderstood. That boy loved to talk until one day he didn't. Now I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard his voice without a buffer. Every call was rushed. Sophia, hovering in the background. Say hi to Auntie Aurora. Click. End of conversation. After the party, something gnawed at me louder than the silence between us. I logged into my online banking portal and began checking linked accounts. What started as curiosity turned into nausea. There were 3 credit cards I'd forgotten, even existed cards I'd opened years ago to help build Sophia's credit. All still active, all recently used. One had a $3,000 charge from a boutique hotel in Sonoma. Another showed monthly payments to a luxury gym. The third, a home decor retailer with prices high enough to make me blink twice. Then I found the loan. A personal line opened 2 years ago using my name as cosigner. $42,000 and climbing. It didn't make sense. I hadn't seen any of this. No alerts, no requests. But then I remembered the forwarded mail the time Sophia offered to handle the paperwork for Mom's insurance renewal, the way she insisted on helping me simplify my accounts. My generosity had been converted into collateral, my silence into access. She didn't just cut me out. She replaced me with a signature. I stared at the spreadsheet I'd started building, itemizing every transaction, every login I hadn't made. The numbers didn't lie, and neither did the dates. My trust wasn't just misplaced. It had been monetized. I picked up my phone again. This time it wasn't Ethan I needed to call. It was Rachel. By morning, I had 11 missed calls. 8 from Sophia, 2 from my mother, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize but could guess. I let everyone go to voicemail. My coffee had already gone cold by the time my phone rang again. And this time I picked up. What the hell is wrong with you? Sophia didn't wait for a greeting. Her voice was shrill with panic. Do you realize what you've done? You embarrassed me in front of everyone. My cards were declined. The caterer threatened to call the cops. I kept my tone flat. Sounds like a memorable party. Don't play coy, Aurora. This was Liam's day, and you ruined it. I wasn't invited. Remember I said standing at the kitchen counter? Apparently, I'm not close enough family to stand in the same room, but I was close enough to bankroll it. Sophia went silent for a beat. Then you've always been dramatic, and you've always been entitled. You're going to destroy this family over money. No, I said calmly. You already did that when you started treating me like a credit line instead of a person. Another pause. We needed help. You forged my name. We didn't forge anything. I have bank records, Sophia. I have dates, signatures, charges accounts. You used my identity to take out loans and open cards you never intended to pay off. She didn't deny it. I took a breath. Now you know what it feels like to be erased. The line went dead. I didn't feel vindicated. Not yet. I wasn't after vengeance. I was after a boundary one that should have existed years ago. I reached for the folder I'd started the night before, the one filled with statements, screenshots, and emails. Then I pulled out the business card I hadn't used since Dad's first heart scare 5 years ago. Rachel Devlin, Family Law. She picked up on the second ring. Aurora. Been a while. I need your help, I said. How bad is it? 87,000 and counting. And I want it back. Rachel didn't gasp. She didn't offer sympathy. She just said, come in tomorrow. Bring everything. After I hung up, I returned to the table and slid the gift for Liam back into the closet. Not because he didn't deserve it, but because the next time I gave him something, it was going to be on my terms. Rachel didn't blink as she flipped through the folders. Page after page, transaction after transaction, every signature, every login, timestamp, every line of credit attached to my name but never touched by my hands. She's good? Rachel said flatly, tapping one of the forged authorization forms. But not good enough. The handwriting doesn't match your legal signature. Not even close. She laid out a clean sheet of paper. So here's what we do. Demand letter, full restitution principal, and interest legal fees. Termination of all joint or co-signed financial ties, and something else. I looked up. Visitation, Rachel said. With Liam, we'll file for court-protected access if they try to block you again. I exhaled slowly. That's all I want. No, Rachel said, looking me square in the eyes. It's not all you want, but it's what you'll ask for. The rest will come. By the time I left her office, the letter was in motion. Certified mail signature required. Sophia wouldn't be able to pretend she hadn't received it. Later that evening, I got the call I'd been expecting. Not from Sophia this time, but from my father. Your mother's upset. He said, voice heavy with disappointment. She thinks you're being unfair. She hasn't said a word to me. She's hurt. So am I. He sighed. Families fight. It's not worth dragging lawyers into it. You could have just talked to Sophia. I did, I said. She lied. He was quiet a long time. Maybe you should have just let it go. I didn't flinch. Not this time. Let it go like she did with my name, my money, my place in this family. She's your sister. She used that word like a shield. I could hear him shift in his chair. It's not too late to call it off. We'll figure something out as a family. No, Dad. You had your chance to figure it out. He didn't say anything after that. Just a sigh, and then the line clicked. I stood there in the middle of my kitchen holding the phone like it might ring again, but it didn't, and I didn't expect it to. I sat back at the table, opened the folder one more time, and slid in the printed copy of the demand letter. This wasn't just paper. It was evidence that I finally believed myself. The house looked bigger than I remembered. Maybe it was the new landscaping or the freshly painted shutters. Or maybe it was just that now I could finally see how much of myself had been poured into a place I'd never been fully welcomed. I rang the doorbell once, then twice. The chime echoed like I was a visitor, not someone whose name was on the original loan. Sophia opened the door with a polished smile that cracked at the edges. Well, if it isn't the sheriff herself. I stepped inside without responding. The foyer smelled like citrus cleaner and expensive perfume. My parents were already seated in the living room, stiff on the couch, like they didn't know which side they were supposed to be on. Ellen offered a half smile. Richard wouldn't look at me. Sophia folded her arms. You didn't need to do all this. We could have talked. We tried that. You lied. So now I brought evidence. I laid the folder on the coffee table. Page 1, the forged authorization form. Page 2, the loan application you claimed I signed. Pages 3 through 10, credit card statements you racked up on my name. Sophia glanced down, scoffed. You act like you're some kind of martyr. You gave that money willingly. No, I gave it under the belief I was helping my family. You turned that into a financing plan for your fantasy life. You weren't generous, she snapped. You were foolish. I met her eyes. No, I was family. And you failed me. Richard finally looked up, eyes clouded. Sophia, did you really use her credit? Sophia didn't answer. Ellen reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I took a breath and straightened the stack of papers. You can call me foolish. You can call me dramatic. But today you're going to call me done. You're going to ruin everything over some money. You already ruined it. I'm just putting my name back where it belongs. I turned to go. No one stopped me, not even my mother. On my way out, I passed the family photo hanging by the front door. My face wasn't in it. They'd updated it last year. New outfits, new smiles, new frame. I hadn't noticed I was missing until now. I closed the door behind me without a word and drove straight to Rachel's office. Sophia's lawyer opened with bluster. Claims of emotional distress, character defamation, and irreparable harm to her family unit. Rachel listened without interrupting, then calmly slid 2 folders across the table. These are credit applications using my client's name, forged signatures, and over $87,000 in unauthorized debt. She said, "If you'd like to proceed with countersuit, we'll respond with charges of financial fraud, identity theft, and potential elder abuse." The silence on their side of the room was immediate. By the end of the week, the judge had issued orders freezing all remaining lines of credit Sophia had access to, including the ones she hadn't disclosed. Rachel found them. She always did. The part no one expected was what came next. The court had requested a full financial assessment of Sophia's household to evaluate Liam's stability. Receipts, statements, proof of expenses. Sophia submitted salon bills, a luxury spa membership, and a lease for a car that cost more than my entire annual salary. What she didn't provide was a single invoice for Liam's school clothes or care. 3 days later, I got a call from the court-appointed evaluator. Temporary custody would be transferred to me until further review. Liam arrived at my door with a small backpack and wide eyes. He didn't ask questions. He just walked in, kicked off his shoes, and opened the fridge like he used to. My parents came by that evening not to help to object. "This is going too far," Ellen said, arms crossed at the threshold. "Sophia's your sister. She's his mother," Richard added. "You're punishing a child to make a point." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, keeping Liam out of earshot. "No," I said quietly. "I'm protecting a child from someone who only sees him as an accessory." "You think you're better than us now?" Ellen asked, her voice cracking. "No," I said. "I think I finally see the difference between showing up and being visible." They didn't answer. I didn't invite them in. As they walked away, I looked back through the front window and saw Liam on the couch curled up with the old dinosaur blanket I'd saved from when he was little. He looked safe. The girl who used to beg to be included was gone, and in her place, someone new was beginning to build. We set up early 2 folding tables, a rented canopy, and a cooler full of juice boxes. Rachel dropped off balloons. My neighbor brought extra lawn chairs, no catering vans, no champagne fountains, just peanut butter sandwiches shaped like dinosaurs and a homemade banner that read, "Liam turns 11. The kids didn't care that the cake was from a grocery store or that the party bags weren't monogrammed. They chased each other through the grass, sticky with frosting cheeks flushed from laughter. I sat on a picnic blanket watching it all unfold, feeling something settle in me. Something solid. When Liam finally opened his gift, his eyes went wide. "The green one?" he asked, holding up the exact helicopter he'd pointed to in a catalog months ago. "You remembered?" Of course I did. He threw his arms around me tight. This was the best birthday ever. I blinked hard, pressing my nose into his hair before he pulled away. Later, while we packed up the folding chairs, I noticed an envelope tucked into the gift bag I'd set aside. A check from Nathan signed with a note to help with party expenses. I stood there a moment, then slipped the check into my pocket unopened. That night, I mailed it back. No note, just silence. Because this time, it wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about making anyone proud or being seen. It was about Liam, and it was about building something that didn't need chandeliers or RSVPs to feel real. As I wiped icing from the picnic table and watched him chase bubbles with the other kids I knew. This wasn't the kind of birthday people bragged about on Instagram, but it was honest. This time it was built with truth. And for the first time in a long time, so was I. Rachel hosted us in her office on a rainy Saturday morning. Just 4 women and a pot of lukewarm coffee. No drama, no press. No one taking notes, just space to breathe. Sarah had been financially drained by her adult son's business ventures. Maria had co-signed for a niece's education loan that turned into 3 credit cards and 2 eviction notices. We shared stories like stitching old seams, slowly, carefully, without shame. I kept thinking if I gave enough, Sarah said they'd finally see me as more than what I gave. I nodded, knowing that ache. But they didn't, Maria added until I stopped giving. We weren't bitter. We weren't broken. We were just done being erased. Liam now came every other weekend, legally guaranteed. He brought his favorite cereal and left socks in my dryer. We baked. We played cards. We didn't talk about his mother unless he brought her up. He rarely did. Sophia moved to Georgia. She filed one last complaint, which the court denied, then disappeared into silence. Every few months, I'd get a vague update. New apartment, new job, still bitter. That last part never changed. But today, I was barefoot in the yard, sipping tea while Liam ran full speed across the grass, his laughter rising like it used to when he was small. We're not rebuilding the old version, I said aloud, mostly to myself. We're starting something better. Not perfect, not polished, but better. Because sometimes the legacy you inherit isn't love. It's silence. And sometimes the most powerful legacy you leave is boundaries. Aurora learns that true strength lies in setting boundaries, not in silent sacrifice. For years, she gave generously, believing it proved her worth only to be exploited and erased by her family. The betrayal at Liam's birthday party forces her to confront her misplaced trust and reclaim her identity. By freezing accounts, pursuing legal action, and securing visitation with Liam, she realizes that love isn't measured by what you give, but by mutual respect. Aurora's journey teaches her that boundaries aren't selfish, they're essential for building honest relationships and a life rooted in self-worth, not others' approval.
The words hit me like a physical blow across the face. Standing in the middle of my sister's pristine living room, surrounded by wedding planning books and fabric samples, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. "You're dead to me, Jessica. Dead." Amanda's face was twisted with rage, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at me like a weapon. Her fiancé Derek sat frozen on the cream-colored sofa, looking like he wanted to disappear into the cushions. "Amanda, please let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you deliberately sabotaged my engagement party. How you couldn't stand seeing me happy for one single night." I took a shaky breath, trying to stay calm. "I didn't sabotage anything. I just told Derek's mother the truth when she asked about the catering company." "The truth?" Amanda's voice reached a pitch that made Derek wince. "You told her that Bella's Bistro gave me food poisoning last year. At my engagement party. In front of all Derek's family. Because they did give you food poisoning. You were sick for 3 days. That was a stomach bug. Amanda, you literally called me crying, saying you'd never eat there again." I was being dramatic. "God, Jessica, why do you have to be so literal about everything?" I stared at my sister, this person I'd loved and protected my entire life, and saw nothing but hatred in her eyes. We'd had fights before, what sisters hadn't? But this felt different. Final. "I was trying to help," I said quietly. "Help?" Amanda laughed bitterly. "You've never helped me with anything. All you do is criticize and judge and try to make yourself feel superior." "That's not true." "Oh really? Remember when I was applying to colleges and you helped by pointing out that my SAT scores weren't high enough for my first choice? Or when I was dating Michael and you helped by mentioning that you saw him talking to other girls?" Each accusation felt like a knife twist. "Amanda, Michael was cheating on you. I had proof. And you just couldn't wait to show me, could you? Couldn't stand that I was happy." Derek finally spoke up. "Maybe we should all take a breath." "No," Amanda cut him off. "I'm done taking breaths. I'm done making excuses for her. I'm done pretending we're close when all she does is bring negativity into my life." I felt tears burning behind my eyes. "We are close. You're my sister." "Sister." Amanda's laugh was cold. "Sisters support each other. Sisters celebrate each other's happiness. Sisters don't spend their whole lives trying to tear each other down." "I never tried to tear you down." "Bull. You've resented me since we were kids. Poor little Jessica, always in her big sister's shadow. Well, guess what? I'm tired of dimming my light to make you feel better about yourself." The room fell silent except for the tick of Derek's expensive grandfather clock. I looked at Amanda, beautiful, successful Amanda with her corner office at the marketing firm, her perfect fiancé, her designer clothes and monthly facials, and realized she actually believed what she was saying. In her mind, I was the villain. I was the one who'd made her life difficult. "I love you, Amanda," I whispered. "No, you don't. You love the idea of having a sister to control and criticize. But I'm done being your project. She walked to the front door and opened it. Get out. Amanda. Get out. And don't come back. Don't call me, don't text me, don't show up at my workplace. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me. I grabbed my purse with trembling hands and walked toward the door. At the threshold, I turned back one more time. What about the wedding? I'm your maid of honor. Not anymore. Derek's sister will do it. Amanda's voice was ice cold. I don't want you there, Jessica. I don't want you anywhere near the happiest day of my life. She slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. I stood on her front porch for a long moment, processing what had just happened. 26 years of sisterhood, ended over a catering company. Or maybe that was just the excuse. Maybe this had been building for years and I'd been too blind to see it. I drove home to my small apartment across town, replaying every word of our fight. By the time I got there, I'd made a decision. If Amanda wanted me dead to her, then that's exactly what I'd become. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day planning my disappearance. Not literally, I wasn't going to fake my death or anything dramatic like that. But I was going to remove myself so completely from Amanda's life that it would be like I never existed. First, I went through my apartment and boxed up every photo, every gift, every reminder of my sister. The matching necklaces we'd bought on vacation in Mexico. The birthday cards she'd given me over the years. The bridesmaid dress I'd already bought for her wedding. Everything went into storage. Next, I called our parents. Jessica, honey, Mom answered on the second ring. I was just thinking about you. Are you excited about Amanda's wedding? Only 4 months away. I took a deep breath. Mom, I need to tell you something. Amanda and I had a fight and she doesn't want me at the wedding anymore. What? That's ridiculous. What could you possibly have fought about? I gave her the sanitized version. Disagreement about catering, things got heated, Amanda needed space. Well, she'll get over it, Mom said confidently. You girls always work things out. I don't think so this time. She was pretty clear that she doesn't want me in her life anymore. Don't be dramatic, Jessica. I'll talk to her. Mom, please don't. If Amanda wants space, I'm going to give it to her. Completely. What does that mean? It means I won't be coming to family dinners for a while. Or Sunday brunch. Or any gatherings where Amanda will be there. There was a long pause. Jessica, you can't just disappear from the family because you and Amanda had a fight. I'm not disappearing from the family. I'm respecting Amanda's wishes. She made it very clear that she doesn't want me around. After I hung up with Mom, I called Dad and had essentially the same conversation. Then I sent a group text to our extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, explaining that I wouldn't be attending any family events for the foreseeable future due to personal reasons. The responses came flooding in immediately. Concern, confusion, offers to mediate. I replied to each one with the same message. I appreciate your concern, but this is something I need to handle on my own. Then I blocked Amanda's number. Not out of anger but out of self-preservation. If she wanted me dead to her, then I needed to be dead to her completely. No drunk texts, no holiday guilt trips, no moments of weakness where I might reach out. If I was going to be a ghost, I was going to do it right. The first month was the hardest. I missed Mom's birthday dinner. According to the photos on Facebook, I'd unfriended Amanda but could still see family posts. It was a small gathering. Just Amanda, Derek, and our parents. Mom looked sad in the pictures and I wondered if she was thinking about me. I missed Sunday brunch at our favorite cafe. Dad posted a photo of his famous blueberry pancakes with the caption, "Not the same without the whole family here." I missed Amanda's bridal shower. I saw the pictures later. Amanda glowing in a white sundress, surrounded by her friends and Derek's female relatives. My spot as maid of honor had indeed been filled by Derek's sister, a pretty blonde named Stephanie who looked thrilled to be part of the celebration. Each missed event felt like a small death. But I stuck to my decision. If Amanda wanted me gone, I'd stay gone. At work, my colleagues noticed the change. I'd always been the one organizing birthday parties and group lunches, the one who remembered everyone's anniversaries and kids' names. But suddenly I became quieter, more focused on my projects, less interested in socializing. You okay, Jess? My cubicle mate Karen asked one Thursday afternoon. You've seemed different lately. Just going through some family stuff, I replied, not looking up from my computer screen. Anything you want to talk about? Not really. But thanks. Karen meant well, but I couldn't explain the situation without sounding pathetic. My sister told me I was dead to her, so I decided to actually become dead to her. Yeah, that would go over well. Instead, I threw myself into work. I took on extra projects, stayed late, volunteered for the assignments no one else wanted. My boss, Mr. Richardson, started noticing. Jessica, I have to say your work quality has been exceptional lately. Are you interested in taking on more responsibility? Sir. Absolutely. There's a position opening up in our Seattle office. Regional coordinator. It would mean a significant raise and a chance to build something from the ground up. Seattle. 300 miles away from Portland. 300 miles away from Amanda and her perfect life and the family that was probably better off without me anyway. I'm very interested, I said. Excellent. I'll put you forward for the position. 2 months after our fight, I got the job in Seattle. I put in my notice, found a new apartment online, and started packing my life into boxes. It felt symbolic somehow, boxing up not just my belongings, but my entire identity as Amanda Morrison's little sister. The only person I told about the move was my landlord. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my extended family. I certainly didn't tell Amanda. If they wanted to know where I was, they could figure it out themselves. But something told me they wouldn't bother looking. On my last day in Portland, I drove past Amanda's house one final time. Derek's car was in the driveway next to her BMW. Lights were on in the living room and I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. They were probably looking at wedding magazines, discussing flower arrangements and seating charts. Planning the happiest day of Amanda's life. The day that would be perfect specifically because I wouldn't be there to ruin it. I felt a strange sense of peace as I drove away. Seattle was everything Portland wasn't. Where Portland was familiar and comfortable, Seattle was exciting and unknown. Where Portland held 26 years of memories and expectations, Seattle offered a blank slate. I threw myself into my new job with an intensity that surprised even me. Regional coordinator meant managing client relationships across the Pacific Northwest, traveling to different cities, building partnerships from scratch. For the first time in my life, I wasn't somebody's little sister. I was just Jessica Morrison, successful professional, capable woman who could handle whatever challenges came her way. My apartment was small but had a view of Elliott Bay. I bought new furniture. Nothing that reminded me of my old life. I joined a hiking group and discovered I actually enjoyed spending weekends exploring the Cascade Mountains. I took a cooking class and learned to make things that weren't from a box or takeout container. Slowly, carefully, I built a new version of myself. The version who didn't constantly worry about disappointing someone. Who didn't second-guess every word before speaking. Who didn't feel responsible for everyone else's happiness. It was liberating. My parents called occasionally, asking when I was coming home for a visit. I made excuses. Busy with work, traveling for clients, getting settled in the new city. They seemed to accept my explanations, though Mom's voice always sounded strained when we talked. Amanda asks about you sometimes, she said during one call. My heart skipped. What does she say? Just wondering how you're doing. She misses you, Jessica. If she misses me, she has my number. You know how stubborn she is. She's probably waiting for you to make the first move. I tried to make moves for 26 years, Mom. I'm tired of being the one who always apologizes first. There was a long pause. She's getting married in 6 weeks. I know. It would mean a lot if you came. She made it clear she doesn't want me there. People say things they don't mean when they're angry. Mom, she looked me in the eye and told me I was dead to her. I'm just respecting her wishes. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment looking out at the water, feeling that familiar ache in my chest. The one that said maybe I was being too stubborn, too proud. Maybe I should swallow my hurt and reach out. But then I remembered Amanda's face that day. The disgust in her eyes. The relief when she told me not to come to her wedding. Oh, I'd made the right choice. For both of us. Amanda's wedding was on a Saturday in October. I knew because the date had been burned into my memory from months of planning discussions. I spent that Saturday hiking Mount Pilchuck with my new friend group, deliberately choosing something that would keep me busy and offline all day. But that night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't resist checking social media. The photos were everything I'd expected. Amanda looked absolutely radiant in a flowing white gown that probably cost more than my car. Derek was handsome in his tuxedo, gazing at his new wife like she hung the moon. The venue was gorgeous. An outdoor ceremony at a vineyard with string lights and white roses everywhere. Stephanie, Derek's sister, Looked perfect as the maid of honor in a dusty rose dress. I scrolled through dozens of photos. The ceremony, the reception, the dancing. Everyone looked happy and beautiful and complete. I wasn't in a single picture, of course. It was like I'd never existed. Mission accomplished. I closed my laptop and went to bed, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest. Life continued. Seasons changed. I got a promotion at work and moved to a bigger apartment with an even better view. I started dating a guy named Michael who worked in tech and made me laugh. I joined a book club and a tennis league. From the outside, my life looked full and successful. But there was always something missing. A sister-shaped hole that I couldn't quite fill no matter how busy I kept myself. I followed Amanda's life from a distance through social media and occasional updates from Mom. The honeymoon in Italy. The new house she and Derek bought in the suburbs. Her promotion to senior marketing director. She looked happy in all the photos. Glowing even. Maybe she really was better off without me. 6 months after the wedding, my phone rang at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night. I'd been asleep for hours, so it took several rings before I managed to grab it from my nightstand. The caller ID showed Amanda's name, a name I hadn't seen on my screen in almost a year. For a moment I considered letting it go to voicemail. But something about a 2 a.m. call from family made me answer. Hello. Jessica. Amanda's voice was thick with tears, barely recognizable. I sat up in bed, instantly alert. Amanda? What's wrong? Are you okay? I need. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. The wedding, the deposit. Amanda, slow down. What's happening? The caterer. They're keeping our deposit. $25,000, Jessica. They're keeping all of it. I rubbed my eyes, trying to process what she was saying. What caterer? What deposit? For Derek's work party. We hired Bella's Bistro for his company's annual event next month. Put down $25,000 as a deposit. Her voice cracked. But they just called and canceled. Said they can't accommodate our guest count after all. And they're keeping the entire deposit because it's less than 30 days' notice. The irony hit me like a truck. Bella's Bistro. The same catering company I'd warned her about at her engagement party. The reason for our fight. Amanda, that's terrible, but why are you calling me? Because. She took a shaky breath. Because you work in event coordination now. Mom told me about your promotion. And you know contracts. You understand this stuff. I was quiet for a long moment, processing the situation. My sister, who told me I was dead to her, was calling me at 2 a.m. because she needed my professional expertise. Jessica, please, she continued. I know things ended badly between us. I know I said horrible things. But Derek is beside himself. This party is for his biggest clients. If it falls through, it could affect his partnership track. Have you tried calling a lawyer? We did. He said the contract language is pretty clear. Unless we can prove breach of good faith or fraud. She started crying again. We can't afford to lose $25,000. We just bought the house, and with the wedding expenses. I closed my eyes, feeling that familiar tug. The same instinct that had made me try to protect her from bad catering companies in the first place. Amanda, I know I have no right to ask. I know I treated you terribly. But you're the only person I know who might be able to help. The desperation in her voice was heartbreaking. But what struck me more was what she hadn't said. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't said she missed me or wanted me back in her life. She just needed something from me. Same old Amanda. Same old Jessica, expected to fix everyone's problems. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said carefully. But I don't think I'm the right person to help. Jessica, please. You made it very clear that you didn't want me in your life. You can't cut me out completely and then call when you need something. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. Did you though? Or did you mean every word and now you're just desperate? The silence stretched between us. Finally, Amanda's voice came through, small and broken. I meant them at the time. But Jessica, I've missed you so much. Every day. The wedding wasn't the same without you there. Nothing's been the same. For just a moment I felt my resolve wavering. This was my sister. The person I'd shared a room with for 18 years. The person whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose secrets I'd kept, whose heart I'd tried so hard to protect. But then I remembered her face that day. The cold finality in her voice when she told me I was dead to her. I'm sorry, Amanda. I really am. But you made your choice. Jessica. I hung up. And then I turned off my phone and stared at the ceiling until dawn, wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. The next few days were torture. I kept thinking about Amanda's voice, how broken she'd sounded. I wondered if Derek's career would really be affected. I wondered if they'd lose their house. But then I'd remember sitting in my car outside Amanda's house on my last day in Portland, watching the shadows of her perfect life through the windows, and I'd remind myself that I'd made the right choice. You can't treat people like they're disposable and then expect them to be there when you need them. On Thursday, Mom called. Jessica, Amanda told me what happened. Did she tell you the whole story? About why we fought in the first place? She said you had a disagreement about wedding planning. Of course. Amanda had given Mom the sanitized version just like I had. Neither of us wanted our parents to know how cruel we'd been to each other. Mom, she called me at 2 a.m. asking for professional help after telling me I was dead to her. Do you see how that's problematic? I see that your sister is in trouble and you're the only one who can help her. I'm not the only one. There are hundreds of event coordinators in Portland. But none of them love her like you do. The words hit me like a physical blow. Because they were true despite everything that had happened. I did love Amanda. I'd never stopped loving her. But love wasn't always enough. Mom, I need you to understand something. Amanda didn't just ask me not to come to her wedding. She told me she wanted me completely out of her life. She said I was dead to her. Those were her exact words. I heard Mom's sharp intake of breath. She didn't tell me it was that serious. It was. And now she wants to pretend it never happened because she needs something from me. That's not how relationships work. Jessica, she's your sister. She was my sister. She made a choice to end that relationship. I'm just respecting her decision. After we hung up, I sat in my office staring out at Elliott Bay, feeling hollowed out. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Jessica, this is Derek. I know you and Amanda have your issues, but I'm begging you to reconsider helping us. Not for her sake but for mine. This contract situation could destroy my career before it starts. I know I have no right to ask, but please. I'll pay you whatever your consulting rate is. I stared at the message for a long time. Derek had always been kind to me even when Amanda wasn't. He didn't deserve to suffer because of our sisterly drama. But if I helped them, what message would that send? That Amanda could treat me however she wanted because I'd always come running back? I typed and deleted a dozen responses before finally settling on, I'm sorry, Derek. I wish you both the best. A week passed with no more calls or texts. I told myself I was relieved. The drama was over. I could go back to my peaceful life in Seattle without the constant emotional turmoil that came with being Amanda's sister. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. On Friday afternoon, my assistant knocked on my office door. Jessica? There's a woman here to see you. Says she's your sister. My heart stopped. What? Amanda Morrison? She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. I felt the blood drain from my face. Amanda was here. In Seattle. At my office. Should I tell her you're busy? My assistant asked, clearly picking up on my distress. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to hide in my office until she gave up and went home. But I was also curious. What could possibly be so important that she'd drive 300 miles to see me? Give me 5 minutes, then send her in. Those 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. I tried to prepare myself mentally, but nothing could have readied me for seeing Amanda walk through my office door. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was limp and unstyled. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She'd lost weight, too much weight, and her clothes hung loose on her frame. Hi, she said quietly, hovering near the door like she was ready to bolt. Hi. We stared at each other across my office. 6 months since the wedding photos, almost a year since our fight, and she looked like a completely different person. Nice office, she said, glancing around at the view and my awards on the wall. Thanks. What are you doing here, Amanda? She took a shaky breath. The catering thing. We figured it out. Derek's boss loaned us the money to hire someone else. Good. I'm glad it worked out. But that's not why I'm here. I waited. I'm here because I've been thinking about what you said. About how I can't cut you out and then call when I need something. Tears started flowing down her cheeks. You were right. That's exactly what I did. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice steady. Okay. I've been seeing a therapist, she continued. Started right after the wedding, actually. Because I realized that the happiest day of my life felt empty. Because you weren't there. Despite myself, I felt tears pricking at my eyes. Dr. Martinez helped me understand some things about myself. About us. About why I said those horrible things to you. She moved closer to my desk but didn't sit down. Do you remember when we were kids and I always got better grades? Always had more friends? Always seemed to do everything right. I nodded. Do you know what that was like for me? Having a little sister who thought I was perfect? Who looked up to me like I could do no wrong. I hadn't expected this direction. Amanda. It was terrifying, Jessica. Because I knew I wasn't perfect. I knew I was just as scared and confused and insecure as everyone else. But I couldn't let you see that because then you'd be disappointed in me. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. So I put all this pressure on myself to be the perfect big sister. Perfect student, perfect daughter, perfect everything. And when you'd point out my mistakes, like with Michael cheating or the catering company, it didn't feel like sisterly concern. It felt like you were calling me a fraud. I stared at her, speechless. I know that's not fair, she continued. I know you were just trying to help. But Dr. Martinez helped me see that I've been living my whole life terrified that people would discover I'm not as perfect as they think I am. And your help felt like threats to my carefully constructed image. Amanda, I never thought you had to be perfect. I know that now. But at the time I couldn't see it. All I could see was my little sister pointing out my flaws, and it triggered this massive defense mechanism. She finally sat down in the chair across from my desk. What I said to you that day, about you being dead to me, that wasn't really about the catering company. That was about 26 years of me feeling like I had to be perfect to deserve your admiration. And when I couldn't maintain that facade anymore, I lashed out at the person who'd seen through it. I was crying now too. I never needed you to be perfect. I just loved you. I know. God, Jessica, I know that now. But I was so messed up in my own head that I couldn't see it. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us crying. The wedding was beautiful, Amanda said finally. Everything I'd dreamed of. But when the photographer asked for family photos and you weren't there, I broke down crying. Right there in my wedding dress in front of everyone. Amanda. Derek's been so patient with me. But I can see how worried he is. I haven't been myself since our fight. I can't eat, can't sleep, can't enjoy anything because I know I destroyed the most important relationship in my life over my own stupid insecurities. She leaned forward in her chair. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know that. But I'm asking for it anyway because I can't live without my sister. I won't survive without my sister. I looked at this broken woman sitting across from my desk. My sister who'd driven 300 miles to apologize, and felt something shift in my chest. The anger I'd been carrying for almost a year started to crack. You really hurt me, I whispered. I know. You made me feel like I was the problem. Like I was toxic. You're not. You never were. I was just too screwed up to see that you were trying to love me. I took a shaky breath. I missed you so much. I missed you too. Every single day. I saw the wedding photos. You looked happy. I was performing happiness. There's a difference. I studied her face, really looked at her for the first time since she'd walked in. Beneath the weight loss and the exhaustion I could see my big sister. The one who'd braided my hair before school. The one who'd snuck me extra cookies when mom wasn't looking. The one who'd taught me to ride a bike and helped me with my homework and promised that we'd always be best friends. I don't know how to do this, I said. I don't know how to trust you again. We'll figure it out. Together. Like we used to. She reached across my desk and took my hand. Her skin was cold and her grip was desperate. Please, Jessica. Please give me another chance. Give us another chance. I looked into my sister's eyes and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Vulnerability. Real, raw, honest vulnerability. The perfect facade was finally gone. Okay, I whispered. Amanda's face crumpled with relief. Okay. Hey. But we're doing this differently this time. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending. If we're going to be sisters again, we're going to be real sisters. Messy and honest and imperfect. Yes. God, yes. I want that so much. He squeezed my hand tighter. Can I hug you? I nodded and she came around my desk and wrapped her arms around me. We held each other and cried for everything we'd lost and everything we hoped to rebuild. I love you, little sister, she whispered into my hair. I love you too, big sister. For the first time in almost a year, I felt complete. Rebuilding our relationship wasn't easy. There were awkward phone calls and stilted conversations and moments when old patterns started to creep back in. But we were both committed to doing the work. Amanda continued with her therapy, and eventually I started going too. We had joint sessions sometimes, learning to communicate in healthier ways. I didn't move back to Portland. My life in Seattle was too good to give up, but I started visiting regularly. Amanda and Derek came to see me too, and slowly we began creating new memories to replace the painful ones. The first time Amanda asked for my professional advice, about a work project, not a personal crisis, she prefaced it by saying, "I value your expertise, and I'm asking as your sister who respects your opinion, not as someone who expects you to fix my problems." It was a small thing, but it meant everything. Derek pulled me aside during one visit and said, "Thank you for giving her another chance. She's been herself again since you two reconciled." I didn't realize how much she'd been suffering. "We both were," I told him. At Christmas, exactly 1 year after our fight, Amanda raised her glass for a toast. "To second chances," she said, looking directly at me. "And to sisters who love each other enough to do the hard work of rebuilding trust." "To sisters," I echoed, raising my own glass. As we clinked glasses, I realized something profound. I hadn't just gotten my sister back. I'd gotten a better relationship with my sister than we'd ever had before. Sometimes you have to die to someone completely before you can be reborn to them as something new. Sometimes becoming a ghost is the only way to come back to life. The announcement came right after Mom finished carving the Christmas ham. We were all seated around the mahogany dining table in what had been our family home for 23 years. The sprawling colonial where I'd grown up. Where Christmas mornings had once been magical. Where family dinners used to mean something other than strategic warfare. My brother Carlos set down his wine glass and cleared his throat like he was about to give a toast. Instead, he delivered what he clearly thought was a knockout punch. "Sophia, we need to talk about your living situation." I looked up from my plate where I'd been carefully cutting my ham into precise pieces. A nervous habit I'd developed during family gatherings. "What about it? This house belongs to the family now. Mom and Dad are getting older and they need the space for when they retire. You've been living here rent-free for 2 years, and honestly, it's time you found your own place." Mom nodded solemnly. "We think it would be good for you, honey. You need to learn independence." Dad joined in. "Carlos has been looking at the real estate market, and this house has appreciated significantly. We could use the space more efficiently." I set down my fork. "Use the space more efficiently?" "Well," Carlos continued, clearly warming to his rehearsed speech, "Jessica and I are planning to have kids soon, and this house has that perfect nursery upstairs. Plus, with Dad's knee problems, they really should be living on one level. It just makes sense for everyone. Everyone except me, apparently. So you want me to move out so you can move in?" "It's not about wanting," Mom said in that careful tone she used when she was trying to sound reasonable. "It's about what's practical. You're 31, Sophia. Most people your age have their own homes. And Carlos is 34 with an actual career and a wife," Dad added. "He's in a better position to help us maintain this place." The subtext was clear. Carlos had the real job as a financial advisor, while I was just the daughter who worked in computers, and couldn't even keep a boyfriend long enough to get married. In their minds, I was the family disappointment who'd been taking advantage of their generosity. What they didn't know was that I'd been paying all the property taxes on this house for the past 3 years. What they didn't know was that when Dad had his heart attack 2 years ago and the medical bills started piling up, I'd quietly covered them. What they didn't know was that their generous decision to let me live here rent-free was actually me letting them live in my house. "So when do I need to be out?" I asked calmly. "Well, we were thinking New Year's would be reasonable," Carlos said. "That gives you a week to find something." A week. To find a new place during the holidays in a market where decent rentals were scarce and expensive. It was a timeline designed to make me panic, to make me beg for more time, to put me in a position where I'd be grateful for whatever scraps of consideration they threw my way. Instead, I pulled out my phone. The silence around the table was immediate and uncomfortable. In our family, phone calls during dinner were considered rude, but I was apparently past worrying about their rules. "Who are you calling?" Mom asked. I held up one finger while the line connected. "Martinez Security Services, this is David." "David, this is Sophia Martinez." I need a team at the Oakwood Drive property immediately. Yes, Ms. Martinez. What's the situation? Trespassing. I need the Martinez family escorted from the premises within the hour. There was a pause. The Martinez family, ma'am? That's correct. Carlos Martinez, Richard Martinez, and Elena Martinez. They're currently in the main house and need to be removed. Understood. We'll have a team there in 20 minutes. I hung up and set my phone beside my plate, then resumed cutting my ham. The silence stretched on for nearly a minute. Carlos was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Mom looked confused and slightly offended. Dad was doing that thing where he blinked rapidly when he was trying to process information that didn't fit his worldview. Sophia, Mom finally said, what was that about? I called security to have you removed from my property. Your property? Carlos laughed, but it sounded forced. Sophia, this house has been in the family for over 20 years. Just because you've been living here doesn't make it yours. Actually, it does. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder I'd brought with me, not because I'd planned for this exact conversation, but because I'd been carrying the documents around for weeks, trying to decide when and how to tell them the truth. I set the folder on the table and opened it to reveal the first page, a property deed with my name on it. This house was sold to me 3 years ago when you defaulted on the mortgage. Dad's face went pale. That's impossible. We never defaulted on anything. Dad, you stopped making mortgage payments in March of 2021 when the medical bills started coming in. By December you were 6 months behind and facing foreclosure. But we caught up, Mom said weakly. We got back on track. You got back on track because I bought the house from the bank and let you continue living here. I've been making the mortgage payments for 3 years. I flipped to the next page showing the purchase agreement between the bank and Martinez Holdings LLC, my shell company. $847,000. That's what I paid to keep this house in the family. Literally. Carlos grabbed the papers and started reading frantically. This has to be fake. You don't have $847,000. You work in IT support or something. I work in cybersecurity consulting. My company has contracts with 17 Fortune 500 companies and 12 government agencies. Last year's revenue was $42 million. The number hung in the air like smoke from a snuffed candle. 42 million? Dad whispered. That's gross revenue, not profit. But yes. That's impossible, Carlos said again, but his voice had lost its certainty. If you had that kind of money, why would you live here? Why would you drive that old Honda? Why would I dress like I shop at Target and eat lunch at food trucks and live like I'm barely scraping by? I'd been asking myself the same question for months. Why had I maintained the charade? Why had I let them think I was struggling when I could have bought and sold their entire social circle? Because I wanted to see who you really were, I said finally. I wanted to know if you valued me as a person or just as someone you thought you could control. The truth was more complicated than that, but it was as much as I was willing to share at Christmas dinner. My business had started almost by accident. I'd been working as a cybersecurity analyst for a mid-sized firm when I discovered a vulnerability in a client's system that could have cost them millions. Instead of just writing a report, I developed a comprehensive security protocol that not only fixed the immediate problem but prevented an entire class of attacks. The client was so impressed they asked if I could do the same thing for their other systems. Then they referred me to their parent company. Then to their business partners. Within 18 months, I had more work than I could handle and was hiring other specialists to help manage the load. The money came fast after that. Cybersecurity consulting isn't glamorous work, but it's essential, and companies pay premium rates for someone who can actually solve their problems instead of just identifying them. My team specialized in finding vulnerabilities before hackers did, and our track record was impeccable. But success in cybersecurity requires a certain level of invisibility. The more successful you are, the more you become a target. So I kept a low profile, drove an unremarkable car, lived modestly, and let most people, including my family, assume I was just getting by. The irony was that while I was building a multimillion-dollar business, my family was struggling with Dad's medical expenses and the economic uncertainty that followed. I could have helped them openly, but every time I tried to bring up their financial situation, they deflected or assured me they were handling it. So I helped secretly. I bought their house to prevent foreclosure, but I let them think they'd worked out a payment plan with the bank. I covered Dad's medical bills through a charity program, that was actually just me writing checks. I made sure Mom's car passed inspection by having my mechanic fix whatever problems he found and billing it to a fictional warranty program. I told myself I was being generous. Looking back, I think I was being cowardly. It was easier to help from the shadows than to have the conversation about what I'd accomplished and how our family dynamics had changed. But sitting at that Christmas dinner table, listening to them plan to kick me out of my own house so Carlos could move in with his wife and their hypothetical future children, I realized the conversation was overdue. "Sophia," Mom said carefully, "if you own this house, why didn't you tell us? When would I have told you? When you asked about my job and I said cybersecurity consulting and you said, 'That sounds nice, dear,' and changed the subject. When Carlos made jokes about me being the family computer geek. When you assumed I was living here because I couldn't afford my own place." "We didn't assume," Dad started. "Dad, you literally just told me that most people my age have their own homes. You said Carlos was in a better position to maintain this place. You've spent 3 years thinking I was a financial burden instead of the person keeping you financially afloat." Carlos was still staring at the property deed like he could make it disappear through sheer willpower. "Even if this is real," he said, "you can't just kick us out. We live here. We have rights. Actually, you don't. You've been living here as my guests for 3 years. I never charged rent, never signed a lease agreement, never established any kind of formal tenancy. Legally, you're visitors who've overstayed their welcome." The doorbell rang. "That would be security," I said, standing up. David's always very prompt. I walked to the front door and opened it to find 3 men in black uniforms with "Martinez Security Services" patches on their shoulders. David was a former police officer I'd hired to handle security for my business operations. His team provided protection for high-value clients and handled sensitive situations with discretion. "Good evening, Ms. Martinez. You have a trespassing situation. 3 individuals in the dining room. They've been asked to leave and refused." "Understood. Do you want them removed immediately, or would you prefer to give them time to collect their belongings?" I considered this. Part of me wanted to watch them scramble to pack their things in 20 minutes, to feel the same panic they tried to impose on me with their New Year's deadline. But that would make me just as petty as they were. "Give them until tomorrow evening. They can take whatever belongs to them personally, but the furniture and household items stay with the house." "What about vehicles in the driveway?" "The BMW and the Mercedes can go. The Honda stays, it's mine." David nodded and walked toward the dining room. I followed, curious to see how my family would handle being evicted from their own Christmas dinner. The 3 security guards filled the doorway to the dining room, their presence immediately changing the energy in the room. Carlos started to stand up, his chest puffing out like he was going to challenge them, but Jessica grabbed his arm and pulled him back down. "Mr. and Mrs. Martinez," David said politely, "I'm David Chin with Martinez Security Services. You're currently trespassing on private property and need to vacate the premises." "This is ridiculous," Dad said, but his voice had none of its earlier authority. "This is our home. Sir, according to the property records, this house is owned by Martinez Holdings LLC. Ms. Martinez is the authorized representative of that company and has requested your removal." Mom looked at me with something approaching desperation. "Sophia, honey, surely we can work this out. It's Christmas. Mom, 30 minutes ago you were planning to kick me out by New Year's. What's changed?" "We didn't know." "You didn't know because you never asked. You made assumptions about my life, my capabilities, my value to this family. And based on those assumptions, you decided I was disposable." Carlos finally found his voice again. "Fine. Let's say you do own this house. Let's say you do have some kind of business. That doesn't give you the right to destroy our family." "I'm not destroying anything, Carlos. I'm establishing boundaries. You wanted me out of this house, so I'm granting your wish. The only difference is that you're the ones leaving. Where are we supposed to go?" "The same place you expected me to go. Figure it out." David stepped forward. "You have until 6 p.m. tomorrow to remove your personal belongings. After that, anything remaining on the property will be considered abandoned." The family sat in stunned silence as the security team left. I remained standing, looking down at the 3 people who'd raised me, who'd shaped my understanding of family loyalty and love, who'd just demonstrated that their version of both was entirely conditional. "Sophia," Dad said quietly, "I think we need to have a longer conversation about all this." I think that conversation is about 3 years overdue. I walked upstairs to my bedroom in my house, and started packing. Not because I was leaving, but because I wanted to sort through my belongings and decide what belonged in my old life and what belonged in whatever came next. From my window, I could see Carlos and Jessica loading suitcases into their BMW. Mom and Dad were moving more slowly, carrying boxes to the Mercedes with the careful movements of people who'd suddenly aged a decade in one evening. By morning they were gone. The house felt different without them. Not empty exactly, but cleaner somehow. Like a weight had been lifted. I spent the day walking through rooms that had always been ours, and were now definitively mine, trying to decide what I wanted to keep and what needed to change. The call came that evening. Sophia, we're staying at Carlos's apartment for now, but we need to talk. I'm listening. I've been thinking about what you said last night. About us not asking, not knowing about your life. And I think you're right. It wasn't exactly an apology, but coming from Mom it was close. Go on. Your father and I were proud of you. We're proud of what you've accomplished. We didn't realize how much you'd accomplished. Why didn't you realize it? There was a long pause. Because we were so focused on what we thought success should look like that we couldn't see what your success actually looked like. That was closer to an apology. Mom, I need you to understand something. I didn't reveal all this to hurt you or to show off. I did it because I was tired of being treated like the family failure when I've actually been the one keeping this family financially stable for years. The medical bills, she said quietly. And the house payments. That was you. All of it. Why didn't you tell us? Because every time I tried to talk about money or offer help, you shut me down. You told me not to worry about it, that you had everything under control. You made it clear that my input wasn't wanted. We were trying to protect you. From what? From knowing that your family needed help? From having the opportunity to actually contribute something meaningful. Another long pause. We were wrong, she said finally. We were wrong about a lot of things. Yes, you were. What happens now? It was a good question. I'd spent so much energy on the revelation and the confrontation that I hadn't really thought through what came after. Now we figure out what kind of relationship we actually want to have. One based on who we really are instead of who we think we're supposed to be. And the house. The house is mine. It's been mine for 3 years. If you want to live here, we can discuss terms. Real terms with real conversations about expectations and boundaries. We'd like that. Then we'll talk. But not today. Today, I'm going to enjoy having my house to myself for the first time in 3 years. Over the next few weeks, we did talk. Long, difficult conversations about assumptions and expectations, about money and success and what it means to be family. Carlos struggled the most with the new reality. His identity as the successful son was tied up in being financially superior to his younger sister. Learning that I'd been subsidizing the family lifestyle while he was lecturing me about fiscal responsibility was a blow his ego couldn't easily absorb. But we worked through it, fully. With the help of a family therapist who specialized in wealth-related conflicts. Because apparently my cybersecurity business wasn't the only family secret. It turned out that having money changed everything about how people related to each other, and we all needed to learn new rules for this new reality. 6 months later, Mom and Dad moved back into the house. Not as owners but as tenants paying market rent. It was their idea actually. Dad said he needed to feel like he was contributing rather than just accepting charity. I respected that. Carlos and Jessica bought their own place. A smaller house than they'd originally wanted, but one they could actually afford on Carlos's salary. He started referring clients to my cybersecurity firm, and I started using his financial planning services for my business accounts. It was a professional relationship that gradually rebuilt into a personal one. The Christmas dinner that ended with security guards escorting my family from their own home became the story we told at future Christmas dinners. The year everything changed, the year we finally started being honest with each other, the year we learned that love without respect isn't really love at all. And every Christmas since then, when we sit around that same mahogany table in what is now unambiguously my house, we remember that the best gifts aren't the ones you unwrap. They're the truths you finally decide to share.